nature of the footprints, namely their remarkable consistency, their biomechanical appropriateness.
Spanning the entire globe, involving hundreds of different cultures, explaining the same phenomenon by different names. At some point, you have to go, even as a scientist, you have to say, well, there's got to be something. It can't all be math illusion.
Welcome to Out of the Woods with the Bigfoot Influencers. My name is Tim, and I'm thrilled that you're joining us tonight and hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Today, I'm going to be sharing some bonus audio from my interview with Dr. Jeff Meldrum while I was writing the Bigfoot Influencers book. But before we get to that, make sure you head on over to our website, www.thebigfootinfluencers.com. Check out our content, drop us a note. You can find us on Facebook at the Bigfoot Influencers. You can find us on Instagram at the Bigfoot Influencers. And Twitter, it's BF Influencers. And if you want to check out our weekly episode on the Untold Radio Network, head on over there too as well. So that's enough about us. We're going to get into this. So the first audio clip I have to share today is Dr. Jeff explaining when he took his first hiking trip. I think he was 13 or 14 years old. So sit back and I hope you enjoy this one.
And as soon as I read that, one experience jumped to mind. As I said, I enjoy backpacking, and from an early age. I mean, my first long backpacking trip, I was only about 14 years old, and three 14-year-olds went up into the Sawtooth all by ourselves. I can't believe our parents let us do this, but we went on, just the three of us went on about a 50-mile hike for a whole week. And but later, so that was a regular, and I fell in love with the Sawtooth at that point here in Idaho. Was up on a weekend trip with a high school buddy of mine, and once we got camp set up, he was very extremely ambitious when it came to climbing, trying to get up on a high peak to get the vista shot. And so we were looking at this peak, and he wanted to go way over and up the shoulder and up onto the peak, and I saw this split in the face that just looked like a real easy pathway to go up from my vantage point. So I said, well, and then like dummies, we split up. He said, well, all right, we'll see who gets there first. So here I am, and I was going up this crevice, this big split, and it was getting narrower and more like a chimney, getting more vertical. And I thought, well, if I can just get to that next ledge, I can go all the way over. And as soon as I would get up parallel, my ledge was not a flat ledge. It was a slope with loose scree on it, which I couldn't traverse at all. And so I thought, well, I'll go just a little bit further. And, you get to that point where all of a sudden the next handhold is just out of reach. And I'm now on quite an exposed face, quite high up. And I cannot for the life of me find a way to get to nor really should I go any higher. But the prospect now of backing out of it was pretty daunting, extremely daunting. In fact, I kind of turned around and had myself wedged in there. I'm looking down. If I had fallen, it would have been to my death for sure. And I didn't know if I could even arrest a fall if I were to start to slide down that. And you just have that sinking feeling. And that's when that thought, what was I thinking? That was an important lesson for me, though, because eventually I collected my composure and thought it through, and I was able to worm my way down and got to a point that I felt much more comfortable, and then it was much easier going. But I tell you, from that point, I've always made sure, I'm much less cavalier about going out on a limb. And if I do something like that, I always make sure I have an escape route. There's always a plan B.
So that was really fun, just to hear the story. And he had some fascinating information that he shared throughout the interview. So the next one, we're going to get into Dr. Jeff Meldrum's preference in music, at least at the time of the interview, his preference. So I hope you guys enjoy this one as well.
I'm kind of eclectic. When it comes to favorites, I have a hard time pinning things down. I like to listen like just this past week, I usually just get on YouTube and bring up something and let it play for an hour. And I've been doing some slow jazz and enjoying that of a new spin for me. I like acoustic guitar. Jesse Cook. When I need a little more rousing in that after lunch hour, I sometimes put on things like Two Steps from Hell to get some rousing, epic battle songs to keep the blood circulating.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
brain cells going. But I've never been much for, and my wife and I are a little different. She's a diehard classic rock fan and can name off the bands and all the members of the bands and all. I rarely associate names with the title of a song, name of a band. And so but being eclectic, I can tolerate, or I can enjoy it, put it that way. I can enjoy it with her on a small scale.
Right.
But then I'm the type who's always, just like with the TV, I'm flipping channels. I'm turning the dial or pushing the buttons on the radio to hear some variety. I can't listen to very many, excuse me. I can't listen to very many performers' entire albums.
Right.
It's too monotonous. I like mixes, so a little variety.
Well, there you have it. So next time you see Dr. Jeff Meldrum at a speaking engagement or a conference, you can kick around some music, music notes with each other, so you can talk music. So next, everyone thinks of Dr. Jeff Meldrum as this stoic academic, PhD, but he has a sense of humor, and he wants to make sure that everyone knows that he's not just this, square professor, I guess would be the way to say it. So this is just a little bit about he shares a story where he shared his sense of humor. So I hope you guys enjoy this one too.
I might say that I have a sense of humor. Sometimes I come across in interviews and so forth as rather stoic and contemplative, and don't sound, I think, and I've had a number of people comment that they were surprised that I was just kind of a down to earth, easygoing, fun loving guy, and could crack a joke even once in a while. There was another one. In fact, this came to mind just thinking about this. Again, it was Derek Randalls had invited me out to the Olympic Project to speak for one of his retreats. And one of the things he often does is give a demonstration of basic survival gear, so that when you're safe when you go out there. And his rule was sort of it, and he repeated it over and over again through the demonstration, was you have those essential items, especially that top 5, a blade and a light source and a fire source and so forth, that you have 2. You always have a backup. And so later on in the day, Derek was complaining because he had run out of hot sauce, Tabasco sauce. And I just, from the side of the room, just very casually and dryly said, "You mean you didn't have 2?" And the whole room just burst into laughter. And what they thought was even more funny than the joke itself was who it came from. Derek says, "Yeah, watch out for him. He's like a a snake in the grass there. He's just waiting for a chance to strike."
Well, there you have it. There's Dr. Jeff Meldrum and his sense of humor. Make sure you check out Dana and I had a really cool interview with him a few weeks, probably a little longer than that, probably a month or 2 ago, on the Untold Radio Network on our weekly show there, and that was fun too. So he gets into a few funny things there too, as well as we talked a ton of Bigfoot. So the last clip I have here. I want to share, one of the questions I asked Dr. Jeff for the book was, what's the most compelling piece of evidence that he has, personally been involved with, and he shares that. So I thought this was interesting. It's the I'll let him take it, and you guys can listen from here.
come back to that story that I was that I embarked upon, the footprints, the line of tracks at the outside of Walla Walla. I mean, this wasn't this wasn't just a single isolated footprint, or it wasn't ambiguous. There was no misinterpretation. You had a succession of tracks. You could see the step length clearly. You could see where one of the feet, you know, every few steps it was turning out 90 or 45 degrees. It was clearly looking over its shoulder as it was retreating. I think it was, you know, car headlights coming down the hillside. And then it took off running. You could see the toes dig in, and the mud extrude up between the toes as they curled and flexed. You could see the pressure ridge behind the forefoot. When it ran, it was up on the front half of the foot without the heel touching. You know, it was just like you know, we would run down the beach up on the ball of our foot, but their foot doesn't have an arch to support it in that posture, so it collapses into flexion across the midfoot and leaves a half track and double the stride length. Exactly. So wherever you saw the half tracks, there was twice the distance in between as it was running for cover, and which, you know, down across the plowed field and into the irrigation ditch that had, where there was a kind of a border of brush along the sides of the banks of the irrigation ditch. And so it was just, I mean, it was just amazing. It either was hoaxed or it was the real thing. And so, you know, you try to come up with explanations for a hoax. You could see dermatoglyphics when we first got there. You know, they were only hours old. They must have been laid down in the previous night, late that previous night, or in the wee hours of the morning. We were there in the early afternoon, and there was still traces of dermatoglyphics, which were gone by the time we came back with plaster, unfortunately, because it was a overcast and drizzly, intermittent drizzly rain. Some of the casts or tracks were inundated with rainwater, so they had been pelted with water during the night. But I mean, there were tension cracks and places where the toes had, like I said, had slipped, or drag outs where the tip of the big toe dragged a furrow away as it walked up an incline or something. And you could, it was just amazing. I mean, I was sitting there pinching myself thinking, how can this be? You know, because I had real ambivalent opinions of Paul Freeman at that time. I had been given, I mean, I'd seen the affirmative opinions of Krantz, but I'd also been given an earful from people like people like Renee DeHinden. By this time, I had already presented my findings concerning this video from Northern California up at Harrison Hot Springs at the Sasquatch conference that Harvey puts on, or used to put on up there. And so I had met Renee DeHinden, and, you know, I'd gotten an earful about
well, there you go. Dr. Jeff Meldrum discussing the trackway he found in Walla Walla, which was while he was with Paul Freeman. He paid an impromptu visit with Paul Freeman, and I'll share that audio as well in a future episode. But I just want to share some clips with everyone here. I really hope you enjoyed it. I've got plenty more where that comes from Dr. Jeff and everyone else. I've got all this audio, and I thought it'd be really cool and fascinating to share that with the audience here, just so you get to hear it firsthand as well. So thank you again for joining. We certainly appreciate all the continued support and love. And again, you can find us on the BigfootInfluencers.com. There's links there where you can buy the book. If you want to buy the book, I've got links everywhere. You can find it on the major, on the Amazons and Barnes and Noble and Walmart and such. But there's also some individual small business. There's some bookstores and such that have it too, and some of them have autographed copies. If you want to support local business, you can purchase it there as well. Make sure, again, you go, you like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. If you're listening to this on podcast, you can, give us 5 stars if you like what you're hearing. We would appreciate it. Certainly would leave a comment if you like. You can find us on all our social media outlets. And then head on over to the Untold Radio Network, and you can see our weekly show that Dana and I do. You can find that on YouTube and on all audio. Same thing on all podcast platforms. And again, we thank you so much for tuning in, and we certainly look forward to seeing you next time.